Good morning. Welcome to Transplant Sunday Morning Transplant Coffee Talk. I am your host, Steve Belcher. Thank you for joining us. I would like to continue to ask for prayers for my partner, Tamika Moore, who continues to be on bed rest at this time. Please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Really appreciate that. This morning, we definitely got a really good show. Got a good guest all the way from Chicago, Illinois, Monica Lewis Fox. Let me bring her on. Hey, Monica, how you doing?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you for joining us. How's everything out in Chicago?
Great. Great. Things are awesome out here.
Good, good. So, Monica, you recently had a transplant?
Yes, I had a transplant November Thanksgiving 2016. So the night before Thanksgiving.
Oh, so pretty much like 2 years ago.
Yes,
So
yes,
you coming up on your second anniversary.
yes.
Wow. How's that feel?
It feels awesome. I feel
Okay.
so I feel so well. My energy level is great. And life is back to normal. I'm working full time and blessed to be working for the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois. So,
Okay. Wow. Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. I also continue to advocate for organ donation as an ambassador with Gift of Hope, which is our local OPO here in Illinois and Northwest Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So Monica, tell us, how does your story start with kidney disease?
Well, I didn't have the benefit of early detection. So acutely, I was diagnosed acutely with end stage renal disease. So I was feeling short of breath and really tired for probably about 2 weeks and congested. So I thought I had a sinus infection. And actually, I went to urgent care and they gave me some antibiotics. You know, when you go to urgent care, you can pretty much convince them what you think it is. And I didn't seem that sick. I just was tired and coughing. And I didn't really realize that I was short of breath because I learned to compensate and, not really, it not seem to affect me as much. So I ended up going to the emergency room, and when I got there, they said if I had not gotten there, I may not have survived the next 24 hours. So that next 24 hours was critical. They did everything they could do to save me. And I want to point out to people who don't believe in organ donation, I am an organ donor, have been since I was 18 years old, and they never stopped trying to save me, and they saved my life. But they put me into an induced coma, and I woke up 4 days later and had already had my first dialysis treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the beginning of this journey that you know has been now going on 5 years. So I spent 3 years on dialysis, and then was blessed to get a directed donation of a kidney transplant. So I do encourage people to continue to share their stories. If you're waiting for a transplant, it's really important to share your story every opportunity that you get, because I shared my story all over the place by being an advocate, an ambassador with Gift of Hope. I had many opportunities to speak, to encourage people to be registered organ donors and share my story. And they also created a video of my story about me waiting. And that was what I shared on Facebook many times when I would come home from dialysis, frustrated for having to spend my life like that, frustrated by the treatment that either I got or the people around me got at times. So those frustrations would make me take to Facebook, and I would just basically say, I have about 1,000 friends. If you all share my story, somebody will probably help me. because there are a lot of altruistic donors out there that are just willing to be living donors and that have become living donors. So it's important to share your story. My gift did not come from a living donor. However, I did receive a directed donation of a deceased donor. So my donor's family spoke to, when speaking to the person from their local OPO, when they were having the conversation about organ donation, their requester told them that if they knew someone who needed an organ, they could identify that person and they would do everything they could do to make sure that that person got their loved one's organs. So they reached out to friends and family to see if anyone needed a transplant of a liver or a kidney, or if they knew someone. And someone who knew my story because I had shared it on Facebook, then remembered my story, contacted me to ask me if I was still waiting, and he happened to be a perfect match for me.
Wait a minute. So you're saying your donor came from Facebook or seeing your story on Facebook?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So let me just say to the people watching that's on the transplant list and that's uh, thinking about transplant and seeing other people posting information and trying to receive a donor. I mean, you have somebody right here. I didn't even know that got their transplant through Facebook, through advertising. So please advocate for yourself. It's very important. Continue, Monica.
Yes, it is. It's very important to share your story by any means necessary. And for me, as an African American person and my family, we've always been very private about medical issues, very private about medical, about money, about things like that. That's how I grew up. But the first thing that I learned when I went to be evaluated for transplant was it was important to share your story. Because in Illinois, the wait for a deceased donor is 5 to 7 years, and many people don't make it waiting on dialysis for a transplant for 5 to 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to share your story because living donation is really the best. But also, directed donation is an option. And I believe that if more people understood that they could have some autonomy over the situation when or if the time comes, they may be more willing to say yes to organ donation.
So you said, let me just ask you this. You said many people don't make it to the 5 years to get the transplant. But what about the people who are argue to say they've been on dialysis 10, 15, 20 years that still haven't received a donation? What
Well,
about those individuals?
the first question to ask those individuals is, are you listed? See,
Okay.
you have to be on the list in order to receive a transplant.
What if somebody's on the list and they've been on for like 10 years
That doesn't,
and
I don't think that
huh?
happens. I don't believe that there's anyone that's ever been on a list for 10 years and never got a transplant. So
Well, they got called,
what's
right?
important to know is that you have to do your part when you're on the
Mm-hmm.
transplant list. And it's a lot of work. It was like
Right.
a full-time job, really. You have to keep
Wow.
all your labs current, and you have to keep yourself healthy, which means not missing your dialysis treatments,
Mm-hmm.
not cutting them short. It means staying in touch with your cardiologist. Any cardiac issues that are unresolved will knock you off the transplant list. So,
Mm.
what happens is people don't maintain their health. In order to get a kidney transplant, believe it or not, you pretty much got to be one of the healthiest people walking around.
Wow.
because
Wow.
they're not going to spend the money and the resources to give someone a transplant that's body is not healthy enough to accept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for our bodies to accept a foreign organ, that's a big deal. And for our bodies to hold on to this organ is a big deal. And all of it takes a lot of work. So
Wow.
it's not an easy task.
I'm sure. I'm
The
sure.
evaluation process is lengthy. You have to go to a lot of appointments. You have to have a lot of screenings. You have to have all your cancer screenings in order to get listed.
So,
So,
Monica, before, because I wanted to ask you another question, but I just saw someone that posted something that I just want to ask you about. Let me just hide this. Trina Faison says, she says her cousin is still on the list over 10 years. Her antibodies are high, so she's a hard match. So just from the working from the kidney foundation aspect of it, for a person like this, what could we say to them about that? If their antibodies high, they've been on the list for about 10 years and it's hard for them to match. Do you know if there's any treatment therapy available to reduce the antibody count in the person who may be experiencing that?
yes, well, so I'm not a clinician, but I am
Sure.
aware that so I received my transplant at University of Illinois at Chicago, and the head of that transplant department is Dr. Enrico Benedetti. And it's my understanding that he does a procedure for patients, I believe it's called plasmapheresis, and that can help people who have antibodies, who have high antibodies. So, what's important for people to also know about transplant is that not all transplant centers are equal. So, if you have a complicated situation, you have to be even more of an advocate in order to get a transplant. So, there are some centers that are more aggressive in making sure that people with difficult circumstances get a transplant. So if a person is waiting on a list, active on a list at a transplant center for over 10 years, I would suggest that they call around, ask around if there are any other centers that have options for people with high antibodies, because I believe there are options. She's not the only one out here with high antibodies.
Absolutely. So if you're watching this broadcast now and you just heard Monica say, and as a clinician, um, Monica, you are right. I mean, there are options out there as far as, like you said, plasmapheresis, and I think John Hopkins has a program as well. But it's just the matter of getting that information out to the people who
Yeah.
are presented with that problem, letting them know that they do have options. Let me ask you, does insurance take care of that?
Yes. Yes. It's all a part of the transplant process. So most people, if not all, most people on dialysis are covered by Medicare. Medicare pays 80% of all of the costs of a transplant, including the donor costs if you have a living donor. And
Mm-hmm.
and then the 20% is covered by whatever your secondary insurance is. If it's state funded, if it's, if you have a private pay, whatever it is, everything regarding transplant is covered. So
Okay.
any procedure that would have to be done leading up to transplant would also be covered. Yes. It's just a matter of really, you can't, It's important for people not to accept the first no. It is possible to go to one transplant center and they will say, no, we won't put you on our list. Some transplant centers are more conservative than others. So some transplant centers won't even list a person who has a BMI higher than 31, I think it is. And however, some are more aggressive, as I said, more progressive, and more committed to making sure that everybody who wants a transplant can get one. So there are options. So again, at University of Illinois Chicago, they don't turn away people with a BMI over 31 because they have a robotic system that they can perform the surgery with, and therefore the incisions are less, the healing is quicker, and the BMI is not as big of an issue. So,
Wow.
so the main point is there are lots of options. Don't take the first no from the first transplant center. If you want a transplant, you have to be your own advocate. You have to do your own research. You have to find a place that will help you. I was originally listed at one center, and they didn't seem like they were very interested in getting me a transplant right away. And so I started asking around. I asked around at my dialysis center, which center, which transplant center had other people who had gotten transplants had they been to? And all of them had gone to the same center. So I said, okay, that's a plus. Then I asked some professionals in the field, and everybody led me in that direction. So, not to say that, you know, that is, that the other centers in the Chicago area aren't good, because they're all great, but some are more conservative than others, and some um, have policies and procedures that exclude minorities because of natural just things within our DNA. And
I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, we
yes,
can't escape it. I mean, we we know if this was a perfect world, it wouldn't be like that, but that's not the situation here. And I mean, that's the hard truth that some places do discriminate against minorities. And we can't get around that, avoid that conversation. And that's the only way I think we can um, beat a disease like kidney disease or stand in front of it is dealing with the hard issues like that and letting people know it doesn't matter your skin color. It's just the point that with this disease, it affects any and everyone, but for some reason, minorities are at high risk for this disease than any other quote quote race.
right.
So what I wanted to ask you, can, can you share the moment you was told that you had to undergo dialysis?
Well, it's a very vague memory because, like I said, when I arrived at the hospital, I was knocking on death's door. So the only thing that I recall is that my sister, who was there at the hospital with me, said they said that you have a real hard fight ahead of you. Um, your heart is failing and your kidneys are failing. So I had multiple organ failure when I presented there. Um, and she said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to fight. I don't have a choice. My daughter needs me. Olivia needs me." And so that's what I did. I fought. I knew nothing about dialysis. I never even knew anyone who went to dialysis. So I had to learn everything that I could. I became a dialysis expert
Mm-hmm.
about my treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to be successful with it so that it didn't take up 3 full days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Many people go to dialysis, they sit there, they let them, in my terms, suck the life out of them. They don't have input about how much fluid is too much to take off. They don't pay attention to their blood pressure readings. I learned how important all of that was in managing a treatment. And you can't depend on the technicians and nurses because they have so many other patients to care for. And your treatment
Mm-hmm.
can take a turn in a moment's notice. So I didn't
You're right
sleep
about
through
that.
treatment. I didn't sleep through treatment. I asked them to turn my machine towards me, and I paid attention every time it took my blood pressure. It occurred to me they are taking my blood pressure and my heart rate every 30 minutes, or
Every 30 minutes.
somebody needs to be looking at that every 30 minutes, you know. And so I realized that my blood pressure threshold was not the same as the person in the chair next to me. But technicians float around. It's not always the same technician. And they're thinking about, kind of the blanket standards, which don't apply to each patient. So I had to
Right.
know what applied to me, what worked for me and what didn't, and pay attention to that.
I mean, you're absolutely right about everything you said. Again, from me being a clinician, you have some patients that come to treatment that just go to sleep. I mean, everybody, got something going on. They could be coming from work, so they may not feel like doing it. They may, go to sleep. They've been
Right.
working all day, or they may not have been working all day. They may be watching television, doing crossword puzzle, this or that. But I absolutely agree with you that you have to be, and we've been saying this all along, you have to be your own health advocate, and especially when you're dealing with something like kidney disease, because it affects other parts of your system that you're focusing on one thing and something else could be totally going on that you're unaware of that could pop up. And, you can land in a hospital or something like that and just something you wasn't even totally aware of.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's important for people to realize that they really need to pay attention. I'm not saying you have to sit there and stare at the machine, but when that blood pressure goes off, take a look and see what your reading is right now. Because if it's getting to the point of being too low, they need to stop pulling fluid, you know.
Absolutely.
And talk to
Absolutely.
your doctor, because if you don't express how you're feeling and you just think that that's a part of the process, it's not. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to feel terrible
Hmm.
after every dialysis treatment. You should not walk in there feeling one way and walk out feeling worse.
Let me ask you, for someone who may want to know, are you still on anti-rejection meds? And if so, how many are you taking now?
Yes. So that's one of the biggest myths and misconceptions, I think, that scare people away from even trying to get a transplant, because the common thing that is said is, oh, you have to take so much medication. And that's not the truth. Even if I had to take so much medication for the rest of my life, it would have been better to me than being on dialysis. Um, but what happens is you are prescribed anti-rejection medicines. Generally, there are 2 different prescriptions for that. Initially, you take as more of it, higher dosages of it, because your body is learning to not fight off this organ. So immediately post transplant, your dosages are the highest usually that they're going to be. And you also have to take other medications to level off your blood work. So, for instance, when you're on dialysis, you have to take binders because your body doesn't process out phosphorus, and neither does dialysis. So you take binders. Well, you don't end up taking binders post transplant, but you might have to take something to raise your phosphorus level or to raise your potassium level, because once that working kidney gets in your body and starts working, it can throw those levels into the negative zone, the low zone. So each person is different with what prescriptions that they will take post transplant. And in my case, initially I probably had about, I want to say, probably 13 or 14 prescriptions initially post transplant. I now have 5 prescriptions. I take 4 pills in the morning, no, 3.5 in the morning and 3.5 at night. So that, in basically in about a year's time, my prescriptions went down to less than what I was taking when I was on dialysis.
That's great.
So that's
That's
one of the
great.
biggest myths and misconceptions, that you have to take so much medication. That's
Mm-hmm.
not that's not an automatic, a given with transplant. Some people take only 2 or 3. Might take
Right.
one of it, but you have to take anti-rejection medicines for the rest of your life, and you have to take them on time. You can't miss doses.
Mm-hmm.
I have an alarm set on my phone. Matter of fact, more than one. So I have an alarm that goes off at 7 a.m. and then an alarm that goes off at 8 a.m. So if for some reason I don't take my medicines at 7 a.m., then that 8 a.m. alarm is going to go off, and I'm going to say, did I take my medicine? And I keep my pills in a daily minder, so I know I can look at my pill box and know if I took my Sunday morning medicine,
Mm-hmm.
if I took my Saturday night medicine.
So, Monica, how long were you on dialysis before you received that call?
I was on dialysis for 3 years, almost 3 years to the day. So my
Uh,
illness began Thanksgiving of 2013, and my gift came Thanksgiving of 2016.
so, at any time between those 3 years, did you ever lose faith that you were going to get a transplant?
No, my constant saying was, God has a kidney for me, and when it comes, it's going to be perfect. And that's the case. That's exactly what happened. But that's what I said. Anytime somebody asked me about it, friends and family would show concern. Oh my God, I can't believe you're still waiting. You still have to go to dialysis. I said, God has a kidney for me, and when it comes, it's going to be perfect. I did have many people step up to be living donors. And for one reason or another, it didn't work out. But it was a blessing each time somebody came forward and even expressed the willingness to get tested. Was a blessing to me, and it was God's message telling me, hold on, I'm coming for you. And
Mm-hmm.
he came in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It came on his time.
He came on his time, and it was right on time, and I couldn't be more grateful. The gratitude that I feel for receiving this transplant is just palpable. I just, like, I have to volunteer to give back, advocate for organ donation and kidney disease, so that I don't explode with the gratitude that I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, did that bring your faith even closer to God?
Yes. Well, my faith, I've always been a very faithful person. And I always prayed to God that when the time came that I had to face a difficult time in my life, that I would be able to hold on to that faith. And
Mm-hmm.
in fact, I was able to hold on to my faith. It definitely strengthened my faith. Um, the midnight hour in an ICU is the best church you can go to. It's nobody there but you and God.
Right.
And it was just, I never honestly said, why me? I, like,
Right.
why me, God? Why did you let this happen to me? I said to God, why did you save me? And what is it that you have for me to do?
Right.
You
Right.
know? Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you feel like your battle or suffering with kidney disease, everything that you went through there, it was a purpose for this?
Absolutely. I call it my journey. And, my journey continues. It took a turn down a road that I didn't intend to go, but God has a purpose for everything that He allows to happen in our lives and that we go through. And it's just a matter of trying to understand, what the purpose is and where to go with it and what to do. So, yes, I believe there's a reason why I sat in that chair for 3 years, because I didn't have high blood pressure or diabetes. And uncontrolled high blood pressure and diabetes are the leading factors to kidney disease.
Yep.
So, but there's a reason. But I never felt like, why me, God? I felt like, why did you save me, God? Because so many people that I know have been in that situation where they went to the ICU, they went to the hospital and were that sick. We're told that the first 24 hours are critical and we don't know if she'll make it. My family gathered there. I thought
Mm.
I had died and was looking down at my wake when in the bits of consciousness that I recall, because everybody was standing around with tears in their eyes. But God had a plan, and He brought me through. And so I continue to advocate and do what is needed. I did not know, I never thought about kidney disease. And so when you think about awareness for kidney disease, it's very limited. Everybody knows about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's putting money towards cancer and cancer research. And therefore, cancer survivors are surviving in record numbers now. The outcomes for cancer patients are much better than they used to be. I want the same for kidney patients. So I'm going to be
Absolutely.
sure to do my part. And I appreciate everything that you're doing to raise awareness, because this is so important. And it's important to have conversations like this. It's important for patients and people who are suffering with chronic kidney disease, end stage renal disease, who have had transplants. It's important for them to be able to get good information.
Absolutely. And, just what you had mentioned about your journey, I feel the same way. I've been doing dialysis 33 years, 10 as a tech and 23 as a nurse. And, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if I would be here at this very moment talking to you or even doing some type of platform like this, I wouldn't have never imagined, because I was just like, many of the nurses or healthcare technicians that work in dialysis. I was going to work, doing my own thing, working at other places, making the money, coming home to my own bubble, and just doing my own thing. And it wasn't until I worked at a 30-chair unit and stood in the middle of the floor and realized that every single chair was filled by a minority person, and all the staff was black. And the only thing that stood out was the white nurse that worked opposite of me. We were both in charge. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head. And that's when I started Urban Kidney Alliance, and thus this journey. But even back then, I never thought that it would lead to even this. And just to share this last part, just recently, I just feel like everything that's happened um, in my life recently with my injury at work and just this ministry is that maybe God wants me, instead of using my years of experience, instead of being enclosed in the 30-chair unit where I work now, to make it globally, that my my knowledge could help not just people in the 30 chair unit, but spread that across the world to help everybody who may not be able to get information from their unit or even hear information that we're talking about right now or didn't even know about it, or maybe someone who just got diagnosed that doesn't know anything at all. So I just thank God that He's allowing me to do this. And I'm just going to continue on this journey and go by His plan. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, He gets the glory, and He knows what's going to happen even before we knew what was going to happen. I mean, like you said, 3 years ago, when you started your journey, you never knew that we would be here talking. I never knew I would meet a Monica Lewis Fox. So I just thank God that He's allowing this to unfold, and we're able to hopefully help someone who may be looking right now that could touch their lives, and maybe they can start doing something to touch someone else's life. Because what many people don't know, healthcare and what you talked about transplant, it's going to really get streamlined where it's already like that, where it's almost set up like a factory type environment where you go in, get your treatment, you leave. It's no more room for us as healthcare workers to sit down at your chair to honestly share um, education or what you need to know. One thing, for instance, disaster planning. We can't really even sit down now and just go over and show you, do you know how to turn off your machine, clamp your lines, disconnect, and get out? It's give you a paper, you read it, do you understand it? Did you sign it? Give it back, and I put it in the box. I mean, that's basically what it is. I can't sit down with you and actually physically show you how to clamp the lines. And what if you can't clamp the lines because you got neuropathy, because you got diabetes? How would I know that? This is what frustrates me as a healthcare worker and see this. And this is, Monica, I'm not going to rant on, but this is the only way I can, I don't want to say rant, but just spread this information and the information that I accumulated to help other people who may not know this.
Steve, you bring tears to my eyes when you explain about that is a perfect example. The disaster plan, the what do you do if something happens, if there's a fire and you are tethered to this machine, what do you do? I was so concerned. I'm a, I was so concerned about other patients. And did they really understand it? And God, I'm so grateful that God never allowed a disaster to happen. But I wondered if other patients would be able to do it. Because when I first experienced that, they gave me a paper. They would typically give out papers and ask you to sign it. And they hadn't even discussed it with you at all, not even like an overall announcement about it. But I was never the person that would just sign something. I'm not going to sign it so you can let Medicare know that you can check off this box for Medicare so they can keep the checks coming. I'm not just going to sign it. You must explain to me what it is that I'm supposed to know, because right now I don't know. So to hear you from a professional standpoint, from the standpoint of a clinician who's working in the dialysis center, say that that's not enough, I 100% agree with you. And I used to sit there and be concerned about that.
Yeah, and just one thing else I just want to point out to people to really, advocate for yourself, despite what you're going through, because if you having dialysis in a 30 chair unit or more and you're understaffed and your unit doesn't have a generator and the power goes out, I mean, when the power goes out, the machines just shut down. Your blood stops. So if you're understaffed and you got 30 chairs how do you, I mean, you got staff running all over the place trying to manually hand crank the machines so you don't clot. And so, just imagine that. So it can happen. It can really happen. I don't mean to, like alarm anyone or scare anyone, but this is the reality of what's going on. And that's why you have to know what's going on with your machine when it stops. If it does stop and the power do cuts off, ask them if it's a hand crank, which is supposed to be, if you have a Fresenius machine, the hand crank is located behind the machine. And how do you hand crank your blood back so it doesn't clot? Or, in most cases, people lose their blood because they can't make it to everybody to unhook them. So just think about the people in the hurricane situation and down in Florida that, when Hurricane Katrina hit. Even I was in a Hurricane Harvey down in Houston, Texas. So it's real and it can happen, even over in Puerto Rico. So I just say advocate for your health. Make sure you look at your machines. Like Monica said, turn the machine around. Some technicians may, ask you why you want to do that. Tell you want to see what's going on, see what your blood pump is, see what your blood pressure is, your heart rate, just like everything Monica said, because it's very true. And some people don't even do that. And that's the part that's, really sad here, because if more people are advocate, you have a lot more people doing home dialysis, which is available. You can, be in charge of your own treatment as well. Did you ever think about home dialysis, Monica?
I did minimally. So my feeling about it was I felt like my illness was enough of a burden on my family and I did not want to bring it home. So at the time that home dialysis was mentioned to me, I would have had to do home hemo, which you can't do alone. You have to have someone in the home to support you. And I didn't want to put that pressure on my sister. I share a home with my sister. So I didn't consider doing that. Now there are regulations that have just been passed where it's not required that you have a support person. So I was speaking with the CEO of Next Stage, which is a home hemo uh, home hemo
Mm-hmm.
system, and he was explaining to me that now they have passed a regulation where you can do your treatment at home without being required to have an additional person. So things are constantly progressing in that area. I
Right.
also was given misinformation or limited information about peritoneal dialysis, where I was told that if I had had any kind of surgery on my stomach, that I probably couldn't get a catheter placed. Well, that what shouldn't have been an assumption. I should have been given the option if I wanted to consider peritoneal dialysis. They could have sent me to the surgeon who would have assessed to see if it was possible to place the catheter.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't explained to me, and it was very early on, and I didn't know that that was an option.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that you spoke with the CEO of Next Stage and this, regulation passed where you don't have to have um, someone with you to assist, because I think that's the reason why CVS has gotten into the home dialysis business. And basically, what they're using, it's a company called Outset Medical. I believe they're in San Francisco. They have a machine called the Tableau. And it's basically a machine that is taller than the Next Stage. It stands up and it has a computer monitor screen where anyone, I mean, anyone can work that machine or talk you right through it, or talk you right through your treatment, pretty much. It has cartridges, like acid solution cartridges, I pretty much believe. And you can just hook it up to any sink. It's dialysis. They call it dialysis on demand. You can hook it up to,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And
I didn't
that's,
know CVS was in the home dialysis business. Isn't that interesting?
yeah, it's the
Wow.
self-care home hemodialysis. And in some clinics out in California, they have clinics set up just to do self-care, in-center self-care hemodialysis, where you do everything yourself and you don't need the staff. Pretty much maybe one technician per, maybe, don't quote me on this, say every 6 patients, there's one technician maybe to assist with the hookup. Because if you could talk yourself through, the treatment, only thing, and you could cannulate yourself, all you need, well, you pretty much don't need nobody, because if you could hook the lines up to yourself,
Right.
then, and return your blood, I mean, you just probably need someone there just to intervene in case you maybe go unconscious, or, just something happens where you can't do your own intervention.
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah.
Um,
So really, so we're talking about it from the perspective of dialysis to transplant. But the conversation really starts much earlier with prevention.
oh, exactly.
And
I agree with
so, really, and I hope that we can really raise awareness about kidney disease where people will understand that prevention of it is so important. Off learning whether or not you have it at earlier stages. If people understand that they can slow down the progression, if not stop it,
you. Yeah,
if they
yeah.
just know early enough. We are afraid to know. And also, insurance regulations are set up to where kidney disease is not something that they're tested for. So, we've been advocating through the National Kidney Foundation for policies that support early detection. Um, but because that's so important. There are 5 stages of kidney disease. Dialysis doesn't come till stage 5. I was diagnosed at stage 5, and I also went to the doctor for a physical every year.
Wow.
So, it's very important. Here in Illinois, we have free kidney screenings that we do all around the state. We call it our kidney mobile. And when we go to urban areas, into African American communities, a screening that we can screen up at least 75 people. And we had a screening a few weeks ago and 10 people came out.
Wow.
And it's free. No insurance, no copay, no forms to fill out. You come.
So let me stop before I forget this, because that goes with the idea that I believe that God put in me 3 years ago. I kid you not. And I have it on paper that I wanted to do something called urban screening clinics, where you screen for the not just kidney disease, but diabetes
Yeah.
and um, colon cancer, right? Just at one center. It's
Mm-hmm.
just specifically for screening, and then on the other part, you had an education inside the same building. Um, so if they come to the um, to the vehicle and they get the screening, once you get the results, what happens from that point?
Okay. So the kidney mobile itself is a sprinter van, and that van just brings all of the computers and equipment required to do the screenings. And we partner with organizations in different communities who we ask to provide the space and to provide the people who to market the screening to bring the people in to be screened. So we come and we set up in like a community center area. We require tables and electricity and Wi-Fi access, or at least to be, in a space where our hotspots will work. Um, and then patients are given uh, two tests of their urine. Um, bl- uh, we test for we test their blood sugar, and if either
Mm-hmm.
of those are abnormal or slightly high, we can also test for A1C right there. We also test for blood pressure. We check blood pressure and we check BMI, and then they are given a consultation with the clinician at the end of the screening, and
Mm-hmm.
they're given a printout of their results. Uh, if there's if they test positive, or if their A1C is high, we then do an urgent blood test as well. And
Mm-hmm.
they're consulted about all of that and then referred either to a physician. If they don't have a primary care physician, we will make a referral. And then otherwise, some people have had to go right to the emergency room.
Mm-hmm. Are y'all also checking for protein in the urine as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to ask you, can you just, because we don't have that much time left, but I want to go over a little, but I just wanted to ask, can you just describe the day and where you was at when you found out that you got that call for your transplant?
Yes. So it was a Monday morning at about 7 a.m. And my daughter and I were sitting and having a conversation, and my phone rang. And the number was from one of my Facebook friends who had reached out to me previously, curious about the process to be a living donor because she thought she wanted to be a living donor for me. So we had had a conversation about that. But we hadn't talked again since then. So it was a little bit odd that she was calling me at like 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. But I picked up the call, and she began to explain about her friend whose uncle was in Memphis and they were preparing to donate his organs. And she asked if I was still waiting. And I said, yes, I'm still waiting. She said, what are you waiting for? A kidney or a liver? She couldn't remember. And so I told her I was waiting for a kidney. And she said, can I give them your name and number? And I said, oh my God. I thought to myself, could this be it? And so she said, I said, sure, please do. And so that was about 7 o'clock. So by about 9 or 9:30, I got a call from the Organ Procurement Organization, Mid South um, Transplant, which is the OPO in Tennessee. So, Tennessee that covers Tennessee, like the Memphis area, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So they called and they said, we are preparing. Um, what did she? I can't remember the exact words, but she basically said there was a kidney that someone wanted to donate to me, and they needed the information about my transplant center. And so I gave her my coordinator's name and number, and it all started working out from there. And so then my coordinator called and asked me when I had had my last dialysis treatment, and because it was Thanksgiving week, our schedule had been shifted. So I normally went Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but instead I had to go Sunday, Tuesday, and
Yeah,
then
Thursday.
Friday.
Out Friday.
Right. So because Thanksgiving was Thursday and they were closed. So she told me, so that was Monday. So she told me the process that was going to happen, and that they had to wait for a blood serum to come here, a blood serum from the donor to be sent here overnight to Chicago so they could check the antibodies and all of that. And that she told me the length of time that process would take. So she told me to go to dialysis and wait for a call, and that I would probably be asked to go to the hospital around 4 p.m. if everything checked out. So I didn't get the call by 4, but she did keep in touch with me throughout the day kind of letting me know there was a delay getting the donor to the OR. She let me know that things that he was a match for me. Actually, his daughter was the one who called and told me he was a match for me, a blood type match. So that was the first positive call that made me know this might actually happen. Because, of course, you don't know for sure till you get to the OR. But his daughter called and introduced herself to me. She was a 25-year-old woman at the time. And with such strength and amazing compassion, she explained to me that her father was a match for me, and she had just signed the paperwork for his kidney to be donated to me.
Wow.
So that moment right there, that call right there, that was the call to save my life.
And this all came through Facebook.
And it all came through Facebook. And so now I'm very close with my donor family. We talk often. We keep in touch on Facebook. He happened to have a lot of family here in Illinois, right here in the same area where I live, actually. So I've been to some baby showers, been invited to birthday parties. And on the anniversary of my first transplant, which was Thanksgiving Day last year, I was able to join them at the end of the night. We had a balloon release in Milton's honor, and I was able to speak to their family and express my gratitude to them.
Oh man.
It was such a blessing.
Oh man, that's wonderful. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what are you doing now? Your advocacy. Can you share a little bit about that?
So I have a chapter of Ambassadors for Gift of Hope. Um, we are the South Suburban Chicago chapter of Ambassadors. So we meet once a month and we talk about different ways to advocate for organ donation throughout our community. Because we were doing a lot of stuff within the city of Chicago, but then we realized that we needed to raise awareness also out here in the south suburbs. So through a lot of through Facebook, I've gained a lot of members of my chapter, and we work together to volunteer together to create, to identify events that we can go to and have a table and spread awareness about organ donation. And um, now that I'm doing outreach for work through the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, we also are making it a point to include information about kidney disease even at the gift of hope tables, because we find that many times that's the conversation that we end up having with people, because you know when we tell them that we are more likely to be in need than to be a donor, then the conversation goes to, yes, my sister has diabetes, my brother has high blood pressure. And so then we have some educational information that we can share with them from the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois about kidney disease. So
Right.
we're working together. So it's like a seamless partnership, and it's seems to be one of those things that only could have been orchestrated by God. Like if I wanted
Right.
to plan this out, I really couldn't have.
I definitely commend you on your work. And
Thank you.
one last thing I wanted to ask you, have you seen a decrease in um, patient advocacy far as in dialysis units? Because I remember where there used to be, each unit like a patient advocate that spoke for all the patients, or if you had a new patient, or just information to let other patients know what was going on. Have you seen a decrease or increase in that in dialysis units?
Well, I can certainly say I have not seen an increase in it, and it did not exist as far as I knew of it while I was on dialysis. So in the very beginning, I heard mention of it, um, but I never saw it actually in action. There was a patient who seemed to be identified as such, but it didn't seem to be really a defined role that had any connection to any official connection.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't aware of that taking place. So I sort of became a self-proclaimed advocate by advocating for myself and advocating for those others around me, to the point that I finally had to just say, um, I have to just focus on getting a transplant because I can't do this from here. So I had to kind of back down a little bit and put my focus really toward the energy, all my focus and energy towards trying to get a transplant for myself. And now I'm able to more effectively try to advocate for those patients who are on dialysis and who have chronic kidney disease.
Absolutely. I commend you on that. All right. One last question. For anyone who's watching right now that just recently got on the transplant list, that's been on the transplant list for multiple years, regardless, or someone who thinking about going on the transplant list, or even someone who doesn't believe in the transplant process and may be skeptical, any words of wisdom from what you shared today that you can maybe leave with them to give them some hope
Yes.
in this journey?
Yes. Well, my hope is that everyone can get a transplant. I think it's important to know that it's not an easy process and it's not an automatic process. It's a process in which you must participate. So you have to do your part in keeping appointments, in making the next available appointment for any screenings or tests that are required, and keeping all of that current so that you stay active on the list. You can't get a transplant if you are not active on a transplant list. You also have to be your own advocate and understand that all transplant centers aren't created equal. Some are more conservative than others. And if you find yourself at an extremely conservative program that doesn't seem to be working hard to help you get a transplant, you have options and you should consider them. So transplant has changed my life for the better, for all of what went into it, all of the testing, all of the appointments, the medications, whatever it is, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. And I would encourage anyone who is remotely interested, and even if you think you're not, try to research and get some good information about it. At least go to a transplant center and listen to the orientation. Every center has an orientation process that you go through in order to get through the evaluation process. It's valuable information. You also can get information from the National Kidney Foundation of Illinois, the National Kidney Foundation, the national organization, and the organizations that are in your area. So there's information out there. Seek it out. I also, on a personal level, I do help patients. I mentor patients through transplant. And actually, one of my patients next month, prayerfully, is getting a transplant. So it can happen. And he's been on dialysis now 7 or 8 years, but he had some complications in there and was told no from a few centers. But we're working it out, and it looks like it's going to happen soon. So I'm grateful for that. So
wow,
people are
that's
welcome to
wonderful.
reach out if they want information and input. I'm always happy to talk about this and help anyone that I can.
Where can they reach out to you at, Monica?
They can reach out to me on Facebook, through Messenger. Also, my email address is monicafox99@hotmail.com. My easier email address at work is mfox@nkfi.org.
What was the first one, Monica Fox?
monicafox99@hotmail.com. So that's
Put
my
that on
personal
the
email.
screen. We put, is, I don't know if you can see your screen, but is that it?
Yes, yes, that's it.
Okay, so if you want to reach out to Monica, Monica Fox 99 at hotmail.com.
Yes, I
Um,
also respond to Messenger as well.
okay. Um, do you coach anybody outside of Chicago if they wanted you to?
Yes, my patient who is getting ready to get a transplant is from outside of Chicago.
Oh, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. So y'all hear it. I mean, if you want some information as far as transplant and just the whole process, Monica, she's available. All you had to do is reach out. Monica, anybody you want to say hello to or give any shout outs to?
So I think I have some friends online. I think my daughter was watching. Olivia, she's amazing and supportive, and she's a community outreach specialist for Gift of Hope. So that's been a blessing that came from my journey. I
Wow,
think a couple of my other advocates, Angelique, who's become a very good friend through our advocacy for organ donation, who is a 20 plus year recipient of a liver donation. So I have been
wonderful.
blessed to meet so many wonderful people through this journey. So it's just, it's been amazing. It's been amazing. Um, not always easy, but, you know, it's life.
Right, right. And your daughter, she said, hey,
Yeah, that's my girl.
good, good. All right. Well, Monica, I mean, yeah, Monica, thank you so much for coming on our show. Really enjoy hearing your story. I hope someone else, who watched, liked it as well and can use the information you shared to, better themselves and their life.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate you, Steve, for what you're doing. It's brave. I'm sure that I mean you say some stuff that's a little risky, and doing this at a time where you're still employed by a dialysis center, you're a brave guy, and but it's necessary, and I appreciate you. I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
thank you. I
God
appreciate that,
definitely
Monica.
God definitely has a blessing in store for you, and it's coming. Your gift is coming as well.
Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate that. And I look forward to even, working with you in the future if God puts that in the plan because again, I mean, the information has to get out there. And I'm
Absolutely.
glad you're doing where you're at and you're in that position because it's a powerful position as we talked in the past. And you're in a position where you can disseminate a lot of information to people who really need it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank God.
So yeah. So, all right, Monica, we'll definitely be in touch. And again, thank you for coming on our show.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
All right, take care. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye bye.
All right. So, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to Sunday Morning Transplant Coffee Talk. And again, please keep Tamika Moore in your prayers. Again, she's on bed rest, and she will definitely would like to hear from your prayers. So thank you for tuning in this morning. Next week, we will have Sandy Nina Silas on. Look forward to speaking with her, hearing her story from New York. So tune in next Sunday. Again, thanks a lot for tuning in. God bless.